I am Sherry Williams, 34 years old, an event planner from Chicago who spent her life organizing perfect moments for others. Ironic that my own wedding day would be the one event that fell apart. As I stood alone with Thomas cutting our wedding cake, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother, "Call me, urgent." I glanced at the notification and saw something that made my lips curl into a smile. 52 missed calls. Justice has a way of finding you when you least expect it. If you are watching this, drop a comment telling me where you are from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how I survived the ultimate family betrayal. Growing up in Elmhurst, a middle-class suburb just outside Chicago, I was the oldest child in what appeared to be a picture-perfect family. My parents, Catherine and James Williams, were high school sweethearts who married young and built a comfortable life together. Dad worked as an accountant at a local firm while Mom taught kindergarten at the neighborhood elementary school. From the outside, we looked like the ideal American family, complete with the white picket fence and golden retriever named Buddy. But beneath that polished exterior lay a family dynamic that slowly chipped away at my self-worth. My younger sister Amy, born 6 years after me, became the center of our family universe from the moment she arrived. She was the baby, the one with the big blue eyes and blonde curls that charmed everyone she met. I loved her fiercely at first, excited to be a big sister, but as the years passed, I noticed a disturbing pattern. Amy always got her way. Always. If I received a new book as a gift, Amy would throw a tantrum until she got 2. When I made honor roll in 8th grade, my parents barely acknowledged it because Amy had the lead in her 2nd grade play that same week. The refrigerator was plastered with her artwork and certificates, while my achievements were met with a casual, "Good job, Sherry," before the conversation shifted back to Amy. One memory stands out vividly. When I was 16, I won a prestigious regional essay contest. The award ceremony was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon, and I asked my parents weeks in advance to attend. They promised they would be there. The day arrived, and I sat alone in the auditorium, scanning the crowd for their faces as my name was called. They never showed. Later that evening, I returned home to find the house empty, except for a note Amy got last-minute audition for commercial. Took her to Springfield, dinner and fridge. "Congratulations on your essay thing." That was my childhood in a nutshell. Amy first, Sherry second if there was time left over. Despite the lack of support, I threw myself into my studies and extracurricular activities. I worked part-time jobs through high school to save for college, knowing that with Amy approaching college age, my parents would prioritize her education over mine. I graduated at the top of my class and earned a partial scholarship to Northwestern University, where I studied business with a focus on event management. College was liberating. For the first time, I was judged on my own merits, not in comparison to my sister. I thrived academically and socially, building a network of friends who valued me for who I was. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a prestigious event planning company in Chicago. Over the next decade, I worked my way up to senior event coordinator, specializing in luxury weddings and corporate events. My relationship with my family remained strained throughout my 20s. I visited on major holidays and called weekly, but the dynamic never changed. Amy dropped out of college after 3 semesters to find herself bouncing between acting classes, yoga instructor training, and various retail jobs. Yet my parents continued to fund her apartment, her car, and her ever-changing career aspirations, while proudly telling friends and relatives about her free spirit and creative soul. I had almost made peace with my place in the family hierarchy when I met Thomas Cooper at a charity gala I was coordinating 2 years ago. He was 35, a successful architect with kind eyes and a warm laugh that made me feel instantly at ease. We bonded over our shared love of mid-century design and our addiction to true crime podcasts. Our relationship progressed naturally and without drama, a refreshing change from the chaos I was accustomed to. Thomas came from a close-knit family in Michigan, with parents who had been married for 40 years and 2 older brothers who welcomed me immediately. Watching how the Coopers interacted with genuine interest in each other's lives and equal celebration of everyone's achievements was both healing and heartbreaking. It showed me what I had missed growing up. When Thomas proposed a year later during a weekend trip to Lake Michigan, I felt a happiness so pure it almost scared me. The ring was perfect, a vintage emerald surrounded by small diamonds that he had chosen because green was the color of growth and new beginnings. That night, as we celebrated with champagne on the beach, I allowed myself to imagine a future where I was truly valued. Calling my parents to share the news the next day, I was prepared for their lukewarm response. But even I was surprised when my mother's first question was, "Have you told Amy yet? You know she just broke up with that bartender." This might be hard for her to hear. Thomas witnessed this conversation, his face reflecting confusion that gradually transformed into anger on my behalf. After I hung up, he held me close and whispered, "We are going to create our own family, Sherry. One where everyone matters equally." That promise became my anchor as we began planning our wedding, a day I had orchestrated for countless other brides, but never imagined would be my own. The irony of being a professional wedding planner planning my own wedding was not lost on me. For years, I had created magical days for nervous brides, assuring them that everything would be perfect. Now I was the one with butterflies in my stomach, scrolling through Pinterest boards late at night and second-guessing color schemes. Thomas was incredibly involved in the planning process, which surprised and delighted me. Most grooms I had worked with were happy to show up on the day with minimal input, but Thomas wanted to be part of every decision. We decided on a June wedding, specifically June 12th, which gave us about 10 months to plan. The date held special meaning as it was exactly 2 years from our first date. Finding the perfect venue was my top priority. After visiting 8 different locations, we fell in love with Lakeside Garden, a beautiful property on the shores of Lake Michigan with panoramic water views and lush gardens. It could accommodate our guest list of 150 people and had an indoor option in case of rain. Most importantly, it was available on our date, which I took as a good sign. We put down the deposit immediately, both of us giddy with excitement as we signed the contract. Next came my dress search. I took my best friend Jacqueline along for moral support. After trying on 17 dresses at 3 different boutiques, I found the one at a small family-owned shop. It was an ivory A-line gown with delicate lace detailing on the bodice and a subtle sparkle throughout the skirt. When I stepped out of the dressing room, Jacqueline burst into tears, and I knew this was it. The dress made me feel beautiful and confident, 2 feelings I had struggled with my entire life. "You have to FaceTime your mom," Jacqueline insisted, as the boutique owner added a cathedral-length veil to complete the look. I hesitated but ultimately called. My mother answered while getting her hair done. She gave the dress a cursory glance and said, "It is nice, but are you sure about white? You know it washes out some complexions." Before I could respond, she continued, "Amy just arrived at the salon. Let me show her." The phone was passed to my sister, who squinted at the screen and said, "It is fine, I guess. Kind of basic though, right? I always pictured you in something less traditional." I ended the call shortly after, trying not to let their reactions diminish my joy. Jacqueline, seeing my fallen expression, immediately took me for margaritas and reminded me that this was my day, not theirs. That became my mantra over the next several months. My day, not theirs. I sent out save the dates 6 months in advance, carefully checking with all family members about potential conflicts. My mother assured me that June 12th worked for everyone. The invitations followed 3 months later, beautiful handcrafted cards with pressed flowers that Thomas and I spent an entire weekend assembling. We included stamped RSVP cards to make it easy for guests to respond. The RSVPs began trickling in, mostly from friends and Thomas's family at first. My college roommate was flying in from Seattle. My former boss and mentor promised to attend with her husband. Thomas's entire extended family confirmed their attendance, many adding sweet notes about how excited they were to welcome me to the family. My parents returned their RSVP card with just their names checked, no note, but I was grateful they were coming. My grandmother, Aunt Laura, and various cousins also confirmed, which gave me hope that the day would include some family support. As the wedding approached, I threw myself into creating personalized touches for the ceremony and reception. I designed custom place cards featuring watercolor paintings of each guest's home state. I created a signature cocktail named the Cooper Union as a play on Thomas's last name and our coming together. I spent hours choosing the perfect songs for our first dance, the father-daughter dance, and key moments throughout the reception. Thomas supported me through every decision, offering ideas and encouragement. When I worried about the weather, he researched historical patterns for that date. When I fretted over the menu, he arranged private tastings with 3 different caterers. When I had a minor meltdown over centerpieces at 2 in the morning, he calmly made coffee and helped me create a pros and cons list until I felt better. 5 weeks before the wedding, we had nearly everything finalized. The final dress fitting was scheduled. The DJ had our playlist. The photographer had our shot list. The florist had confirmed our flower selections. Even the weather forecast looked promising, with historical data showing a 70% chance of clear skies. I remember telling Jacqueline over lunch, "I think we might actually pull this off without a hitch." She raised her glass in a toast. "To your perfect day." Little did I know that my sister was about to ensure that nothing about my wedding day would be perfect. The unraveling began on a Sunday evening exactly 37 days before our wedding. My parents had invited us over for dinner, something they did occasionally though, usually with some ulterior motive. Thomas and I arrived at their suburban home bearing a bottle of wine and the final guest count for them. Amy was already there when we arrived, which was unusual. She typically showed up late to family gatherings, making a dramatic entrance that redirected all attention to her. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone, barely looking up when we entered. Her boyfriend Ryan was beside her, a guy she had been dating for about 5 months. I had only met him twice before at Christmas and at a brief coffee meeting in February. He seemed nice enough quiet compared to Amy's typical boyfriends with a steady job in IT. Dinner progressed normally at first. My mother had prepared her standard Sunday roast, and my father asked polite questions about Thomas's current architecture project. I noticed Amy kept glancing at Ryan and smiling secretively, but I thought nothing of it. As we finished the main course, Amy suddenly stood up, dragging Ryan to his feet beside her. "We have an announcement," she declared, holding out her left hand to reveal a modest diamond ring. "We are engaged." The room erupted in chaos. My mother screamed with delight and rushed to embrace Amy. My father clapped Ryan on the back. Thomas and I sat frozen forks suspended in midair. Just 2 weeks earlier, Amy had been complaining that Ryan worked too much and she was not sure if the relationship had long-term potential. "Congratulations," I finally managed to say, setting down my fork and reaching for my water glass. "This is quite a surprise." "When did this happen?" my mother asked, already examining the ring. "Last night," Amy replied, beaming. "It was so romantic. He took me to the top of the Sears Tower and proposed at sunset." "Willis Tower," Ryan corrected gently. Amy waved dismissively. "Whatever. Anyway, we do not want a long engagement. We are thinking about having a big engagement party first, then planning the wedding for later this year." My stomach tightened. "What kind of timeline are you thinking?" "Well," Amy said, glancing at my mother, who nodded encouragingly, "we already found the perfect venue for the engagement party. They had a cancellation, so we grabbed it." "When is it?" Thomas asked, his hand finding mine under the table. Amy looked directly at me. "June 12th. The same day as our wedding. The date we had set 10 months ago. The date everyone in this room knew was our wedding day." "But that is our wedding day," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "You know that." Amy had the audacity to look surprised. "Is it? I totally forgot." "But this was the only date the venue had available, and it is perfect." "It is a sign." "You could find another date," Thomas suggested, his tone reasonable but firm. "Sherry and I have had our date set for nearly a year." My mother jumped in. "The thing is, Amy and Ryan's venue is absolutely perfect for them. It is that new rooftop space downtown with the city views. They had a last-minute cancellation, and if Amy does not take it, they will lose their deposit." "What deposit?" I asked. "You just got engaged yesterday." Amy shrugged. "We put it on hold this morning. Mom came with us to see it." I turned to my mother, betrayal washing over me. "You went venue shopping with them today, knowing it was for the same date as my wedding." "I did not think it would be such a big deal," my mother replied, her tone defensive. "You are both adults. You can have your events on the same day. People can attend both." "That is not possible," Thomas interjected. "Our ceremony is at 3 in the afternoon, with the reception immediately following until midnight. Unless Amy is planning her engagement party for breakfast, there is no way people can attend both events." "Our party starts at 4, Ryan said quietly, looking uncomfortable. The reality of the situation hit me like a physical blow. This was not a mistake or an oversight. This was deliberate. Amy had chosen our wedding date for her engagement party, and my mother had helped her do it. "Why would you do this?" I asked, looking between them. "You know how important this day is to us." "It is just an engagement party," Amy said with a shrug. "Your wedding is a much bigger deal. If people have to choose, they will choose you." But her smirk told a different story. She knew exactly what she was doing. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. My father remained silent, studying his plate as if it contained the secrets of the universe. My mother kept chattering about Amy's ring and the rooftop venue. Thomas maintained a death grip on my hand, occasionally squeezing to remind me I was not alone. On the drive home, I finally broke down. "She did this on purpose. She is trying to ruin our wedding." Thomas nodded grimly. "I know, and your parents are enabling her." "What should we do?" "Change our date. We would lose thousands in deposits." "No," Thomas said firmly. "We are not changing anything. This is our day and we have planned it perfectly. If your family chooses her engagement party over our wedding, that says more about them than about us." The next morning, I received a text from my cousin Megan. "Just got invited to Amy's engagement party. Isn't that the same day as your wedding?" Weird coincidence? There was nothing coincidental about it. Later that day, my mother called, her voice syrupy sweet. "Sherry, honey, I have been thinking. Would it be possible for you and Thomas to move your wedding to Sunday instead? Then everyone could attend both events." "No, Mom. We are not changing our date. We have non-refundable deposits with multiple vendors. And all our out-of-town guests have already booked flights and hotels. But family is more important than money," she insisted. "Amy is so excited about her venue, and you know how impulsive she is. She will be heartbroken if people have to choose." "I am not changing my wedding date," I repeated. "Amy deliberately chose our day. If anyone should change, it is her." My mother sighed heavily. "I was afraid you would be difficult about this. You have always been so rigid, Sherry. Amy just got engaged. This is her special time." I ended the call before saying something I would regret. Within hours, my phone was flooded with messages from family members, most expressing concern about the scheduling conflict and suggesting we be the ones to accommodate Amy. That evening, I confronted Amy directly. I went to her apartment unannounced, determined to understand why she would do something so hurtful. "Why our wedding day?" I demanded when she opened the door. "Out of 365 days in the year, why choose the one day you knew was special to me?" Amy leaned against the doorframe, looking bored. "It was the only date available at the venue I wanted." "Not everything is about you, Sherry. I do not believe you. Show me proof it was the only available date." "I do not have to prove anything to you," she snapped. "Maybe if you had included me more in your wedding planning, I would have been more considerate." "Included you more? I asked you to be a bridesmaid and you said it was too much commitment." "Whatever. The date is booked. Deal with it." As I turned to leave, my eye caught her phone on the entry table. The screen was lit up with a text message preview from my mother. "Did you talk to the venue about other dates? Like we discussed?" In that moment, everything became crystal clear. This was not just Amy being Amy. This was a coordinated effort to sabotage my wedding. I took a photo of the message before Amy could stop me, then left without another word. That night, I showed Thomas the evidence. They are doing this deliberately. My own mother and sister are trying to ruin our wedding day. Thomas held me as I cried, his arms, the only safe place in a world that suddenly felt hostile. "We will get through this," he promised, "and we will have a beautiful wedding with or without them." Little did I know that the betrayal had only just begun. The weeks following Amy's announcement were some of the most painful of my life. One by one, my family members began changing their RSVPs from attending to regrets. First came my cousins on my mother's side, the ones I had grown up with at family reunions and holiday gatherings. Then my father's brother and his family. Then friends of my parents who had known me since childhood. Each declining RSVP arrived with a carefully worded note: "So sorry we cannot make it, but we already committed to Amy's event." Or, family conflict has arisen, please understand. Or most painfully, no explanation at all, just a checked box, indicating they would not be there to witness one of the most important days of my life. My mother's campaign was relentless. She called me daily, her approach alternating between guilt trips and faux concern. Amy is your only sister, she reminded me, during one particularly difficult call. She will be devastated if the family is divided. I am devastated, Mom, I countered. This is my wedding day. A day I have been planning for nearly a year. A day Amy deliberately targeted. You have always been the stronger one, my mother replied, ignoring my point entirely. You can afford to be generous here. Thomas will understand if you need to postpone. Thomas understood plenty, but not in the way my mother hoped. He understood that my family had been manipulating me my entire life. He understood that Amy's engagement party was a deliberate attempt to steal my spotlight yet again. And he understood that his role was to support whatever decision I made while making it clear he thought my family's behavior was unconscionable. My father predictably remained on the sidelines of the conflict. During a rare phone call where I caught him alone, I pleaded for his intervention. Dad, can you talk to Mom and Amy? Make them see how wrong this is. He sighed heavily. Sherry, you know how they get. It is easier to just go along with them. Easier for whom, I asked, tears of frustration building. Not for me. Not for Thomas. Not for our wedding. They are set on this engagement party, he said weakly. Maybe you could consider moving your date just this once. Would you ask Amy to move her party if the situations were reversed? His silence was answer enough. As our guest list dwindled on my side, Thomas's family stepped up in ways that both warmed my heart and highlighted the dysfunction of my own family. His mother called weekly to check on my emotional well-being. His father offered to walk me down the aisle if my own father chose Amy's event. His brothers and their wives organized a surprise bridal shower for me when they learned my mother had canceled the one she had half-heartedly agreed to host. You are a Cooper now, whether the paperwork is done or not, Thomas's mother told me during a Sunday dinner at their home. And Coopers stick together. My support system extended beyond Thomas's family. My friends from college and work were outraged on my behalf, many sending cards and gifts with notes of encouragement. Jacqueline appointed herself my personal cheerleader and bodyguard, screening my calls and accompanying me to vendor meetings when Thomas couldn't attend. My colleagues at the event planning company offered their professional services for free, determined to make my wedding spectacular despite the family drama. My boss, Eleanor, who had planned events for celebrities and politicians, personally took over coordination duties for the day of the wedding. We will make this the most beautiful wedding Chicago has ever seen, she promised. And when your family sees the photos, they will regret their choices. Despite this outpouring of support, each passing day brought fresh pain. The final blow came when my grandmother called. At 87, she was the family matriarch, a woman I had always admired for her wisdom and fairness. I had named her as my person of honor in lieu of a maid of honor, and she had accepted with tears of joy. Sherry, my darling, she began, her voice wavering. I need to talk to you about the wedding. I knew what was coming, but hearing her say she would not be attending still felt like a knife to the heart. Your mother needs me at Amy's party, she explained. She says Amy is fragile right now and needs family support for her big announcement. What announcement? I asked, confused. They already announced their engagement. I am not sure, dear. Something important, your mother says. I am so sorry. You know, if I could be in two places at once, I would. After we hung up, I sat on my kitchen floor and sobbed until my throat was raw. Not a single member of my family would be at my wedding. Not one. That evening, Thomas found me still sitting there, surrounded by declined RSVPs and a half-empty bottle of wine. They all chose her, I whispered. Every single one of them. Thomas sat beside me, taking the wine glass from my hand and setting it aside. Then we will have a wedding filled only with people who truly love and support us, he said firmly. No obligation guests, no family politics, just genuine celebration. Maybe we should just elope, I suggested, exhaustion washing over me. Save the money and the heartache. Is that what you want? He asked, his expression serious. Because if it is, we can be on a plane to Vegas tomorrow. But if you still want your dream wedding, the one you have been planning for months, then I say we do it exactly as planned, minus the people who do not deserve to be there. I thought about all the love and effort we had put into planning our day. The personalized vows we had written, the carefully curated playlist, the spring flowers I had chosen to match the lakeside setting, the cake tasting we had attended 3 different bakeries to perfect. I want our wedding, I said finally, the one we planned. Thomas kissed my forehead. Then that is what we will have. And it will be perfect, because we will be there promising to love each other for the rest of our lives. Nothing else matters. In that moment, sitting on my kitchen floor with the man who had shown me what unconditional love truly meant, I almost believed him. But deep down, I knew the worst was yet to come. 1 week before our wedding, I received a call from Natalie, my mother's friend who owned the bridal boutique where I had purchased my wedding dress. We had become friendly during my fittings, and she had expressed genuine excitement about my upcoming nuptials. "Sherry, I thought you should know something," she said, her voice hushed as if someone might overhear. "Your sister was in the shop yesterday." My stomach dropped. "Amy was at your boutique. Why?" "She was trying on wedding dresses, not engagement party dresses," Natalie continued, "and she specifically asked to see gowns similar to yours." When my assistant mentioned that it was unusual to wear a wedding dress to an engagement party, Amy said there had been a change of plans. What kind of change, I asked, though I already suspected the answer. She said they decided to surprise everyone with an actual wedding at their engagement party. "Sherry, she was looking at dresses identical to yours. She even had a photo of you in your dress on her phone. When I asked where she got it, she said your mother sent it to her." The room seemed to spin around me. My mother had secretly photographed me in my wedding dress and sent it to Amy. And now Amy was planning to turn her engagement party into a surprise wedding, wearing a gown just like mine on the same day as my wedding. I thanked Natalie for the information and immediately called Thomas, who left work early to come home. Together we drove to my parents' house, determined to confront them about this latest betrayal. My mother answered the door, her surprise at seeing us quickly masked by a practiced smile. "Sherry, Thomas, what an unexpected visit. Come in." My father was at work, but Amy was there sitting at the kitchen table with bridal magazines spread before her. She looked up with a smirk that confirmed everything Natalie had told me. "What is this?" I demanded, gesturing to the magazines. "Planning a surprise wedding for your engagement party?" Amy's eyes widened slightly before she regained her composure. "Who told you that?" "It does not matter who told me." "How could you do this?" "It is not enough to schedule your engagement party on my wedding day and steal all our family guests. Now you have to wear a dress like mine and turn it into a wedding." My mother stepped between us. "Now, Sherry, do not be dramatic. Amy and Ryan decided to accelerate their plans. It is not about you." "Stop lying," I shouted, years of pent-up anger finally breaking free. "This has always been about me, about ensuring that any happiness or success I might have is immediately overshadowed by Amy. And you have enabled it my entire life." "That is not true," my mother protested weakly. "It is true," Thomas interjected, his voice calm but firm. "And you know it. You have consistently prioritized Amy's whims over Sherry's legitimate needs and feelings. You have taught Amy that she can take whatever she wants without consequences. And now, you are helping her sabotage our wedding day." Amy rolled her eyes. "God, you are both so sensitive. So I am getting married on the same day as you. So what? It is not like we are having the same wedding. Mine will be in the city with a view. Yours is at some garden by the lake. The garden by the lake that you visited with me last year and said would be your dream wedding venue," I reminded her. "The same garden you suddenly lost interest in when I booked it for my wedding." My mother sighed dramatically. "Sherry, you have always been selfish. Always wanting attention, always competing with your sister." The accusation was so outrageously false that I actually laughed. Me, competing with Amy. My entire life has been watching you and Dad give her everything she wants while I work twice as hard for half the recognition. And now this, the ultimate betrayal. "Betrayal is a strong word," my mother said dismissively. What would you call secretly photographing me in my wedding dress and sending it to Amy so she could copy it? What would you call turning her last-minute engagement party into a surprise wedding on the same day as mine, ensuring that no four family members attend my wedding? If not betrayal, then what? My mother had no answer, but her expression hardened. If you cannot be happy for your sister, then perhaps it is better that you will not be at her event. And perhaps it is better that none of you will be at mine, I replied, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to remain strong. As Thomas and I turned to leave, my mother called after us. You have always been the difficult one, Sherry. Always making everything harder than it needs to be. I paused at the door, looking back at the woman who had given birth to me but had never truly seen me. No, Mom. I have always been the one who tolerated the intolerable. Not anymore. The drive home was silent, both of us processing what had just happened. When we finally reached our apartment, Thomas suggested what I had been afraid to consider. We could postpone the wedding, he said gently. Not because they win, but because you deserve better than this stress. We could take some time, maybe plan a destination wedding later in the year. For a moment I was tempted. The thought of walking down an aisle, with empty seats, where my family should be was almost unbearable. But then I thought about everything we had already endured, all the careful planning, all the people who had stood by us. No, I said firmly. I am not letting Amy win. Not this time. We are getting married on June 12th as planned. If my family chooses her fake wedding over our real one, that is their loss. Thomas pulled me into a tight embrace. That is my brave girl. Whatever happens, we face it together. That night, I broke down completely. I cried for the little girl who had never been enough for her parents, for the young woman who had achieved success without recognition, and for the bride who would walk down the aisle without her family beside her. Thomas held me through it all, a steady presence in the storm of my emotions. The next morning, we began making adjustments to our wedding plans. We contacted the venue to revise the seating chart, eliminating the now empty family tables. We called the caterer to reduce our final head count from 150 to 75. We spoke with the photographer about focusing on candid moments rather than formal family portraits. Each change was painful, a tangible reminder of the absence that would mark our day. But with each adjustment, I felt a strange sense of liberation. For the first time, I was planning a celebration that was truly about Thomas and me, without consideration for family politics or maternal approval. We will have the wedding we want, I told Jacqueline over coffee 3 days before the ceremony, with people who actually want to be there. And it will be beautiful, she assured me. The most beautiful middle finger ever given to toxic family dynamics. I laughed through my tears, grateful for her unwavering support and ability to find humor in even the darkest situations. As the final days before the wedding passed, I steeled myself for what would be both the happiest and the saddest day of my life. A day of union and division, a beginning and an end. I woke on my wedding day to sunshine, streaming through the curtains of the hotel suite Thomas's parents had insisted on booking for me. Jacqueline was already up making coffee and laying out the schedule for the day. My hair appointment was at 9, makeup at 11, photographer arriving at noon to capture the getting ready moments. How are you feeling? She asked cautiously, handing me a steaming mug. Surprisingly okay, I replied, and it was mostly true. After weeks of emotional turmoil, I had reached a state of calm acceptance. This was my wedding day, and I would not allow my family's absence to overshadow it. The morning passed in a blur of activity. The hairstylist created loose waves that framed my face perfectly. The makeup artist gave me the natural glow I had requested. Thomas's mother and sisters-in-law arrived bearing mimosas and breakfast pastries, filling the suite with warmth and genuine excitement. Thomas is a nervous wreck, his brother Mark reported with a grin. Dad had to take his phone away to stop him from texting you every 5 minutes. The thought of my soon-to-be husband anxiously awaiting our reunion made my heart swell. This was what mattered, I reminded myself. Not the empty chairs, but the man who would be standing at the end of the aisle. As I stepped into my wedding dress, assisted by Jacqueline and Thomas's mother, I refused to dwell on who wasn't there to see it. The photographer captured the moment the zipper was secured, the veil was placed, the earrings Thomas had given me as a wedding gift were fastened. "You look absolutely radiant," Thomas's mother said, tears glistening in her eyes. "My son is the luckiest man alive." We arrived at Lakeside Garden at 2:30 minutes before the ceremony was set to begin. The venue looked even more beautiful than I had imagined, with white roses and baby's breath adorning the arch where we would exchange vows, and the lake sparkling in the background as if on cue. I peeked from behind a decorative screen at the gathering guests. Thomas's extended family occupied several rows. My colleagues and friends filled another section. The chairs reserved for my family remained conspicuously empty, a visual representation of their choice. At 3 o'clock precisely, the string quartet began playing Canon in D, and the procession began. Jacqueline walked first, followed by Thomas's sister-in-law Diane. Then came the moment I had simultaneously anticipated and dreaded. My entrance, traditionally accompanied by a father, would be a solo walk. Except it wasn't. As I prepared to step onto the flower-strewn path, Thomas's father appeared at my side. "I would be honored to walk with you," he said softly, "if you will allow me." Tears threatened to ruin my carefully applied makeup. I would love that I managed to whisper. With his steady arm supporting me, I made my way toward Thomas, who waited beneath the floral arch with an expression of such pure love that for a moment everything else faded away. There was only him, only us, only this moment of connection amidst the chaos. The ceremony was everything we had hoped for. We exchanged the vows we had written ourselves, promises that acknowledged the challenges we had already faced and the strength we had found together. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the cheer that rose from our assembled guests seemed to fill the empty spaces left by my absent family. The reception began with cocktails on the lakeside terrace as the venue staff transformed the ceremony space for dinner. Thomas and I moved among our guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes, taking photos against the backdrop of the setting sun. If anyone noticed or pitied the absence of my family, they were kind enough not to mention it. We were midway through dinner when my phone, which I had left with Jacqueline for emergencies, began buzzing incessantly. At first she ignored it, but when the calls persisted, she discreetly brought it to me. "It is your mother," she whispered. "She has called 7 times in the last 5 minutes." I was tempted to turn the phone off completely, but something stopped me. "I will check if everything is okay," I told Thomas, stepping away from the table. There were indeed 7 missed calls from my mother, along with a text that simply read, "Call me. Urgent." As I contemplated whether to return the call, another text came through, this one from my cousin Megan, who had chosen Amy's event over my wedding. Attached was a photo that made my blood run cold. The image showed Amy standing in what was clearly her surprise wedding ceremony, wearing a dress nearly identical to mine. The similarity was uncanny, from the lace bodice to the A-line skirt. She was beaming at the camera, Ryan beside her looking uncomfortable with my family gathered around them. The caption read, "Surprise? Wedding, Amy and Ryan just tied the knot." I scrolled through my notifications and saw that I had 52 missed calls, mostly from family members who had suddenly remembered my existence. As I stood there staring at the photo of my sister in her copycat wedding dress, surrounded by the family who had abandoned me on my own wedding day, a strange sense of calm washed over me. I showed the photo to Thomas, who had come to check on me. His expression darkened momentarily before he took my hand. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. I looked back at our reception, at the people who had chosen to celebrate with us, at the beautiful setting we had created together. Then I looked at the phone, at the desperate attempts by my family to reach me now that their perfect day was unraveling. "I am better than okay," I replied, turning off the phone and handing it back to Jacqueline. "I am free." We returned to our reception, where Thomas pulled the DJ aside for a quick word. Moments later, the music stopped and Thomas took the microphone. "My beautiful wife and I want to thank you all for being here today," he announced, his voice steady and sure. "Each of you chose to stand with us to support our love and our commitment. That choice means everything to us. So right now we invite you all to join us on the dance floor to celebrate not just our marriage, but the family we have created, the one made up of people who show up when it matters most." As our friends and Thomas's family flooded the dance floor, I felt something shift inside me. The weight of seeking approval from people incapable of giving it lifted from my shoulders. In its place was a lightness, a certainty that I was exactly where I belonged. We danced until midnight, ate cake until we were stuffed, and laughed until our faces hurt. Not once did I check my phone or wonder what was happening at Amy's event. For the first time in my life, my sister's drama was not my concern. Later that night in our hotel suite, I finally allowed myself to look at my phone. The missed calls had multiplied to 52. Texts from my mother, father, and various relatives filled the screen, all with increasing urgency. "Should I call them back?" I asked Thomas, who was loosening his tie. "That is entirely up to you," he replied. "But whatever has happened over there is not your problem to fix. Not tonight. Tonight is for us." I looked at the messages one last time, then silenced the phone and placed it on the nightstand. You are right. Whatever crisis they are having can wait until tomorrow. As I drifted off to sleep in my husband's arms, I smiled at the thought of my mother's text. "Call me. Urgent." After a lifetime of dropping everything to respond to her demands, I had finally learned to prioritize myself. And it felt wonderful. We slept late the next morning, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of our wedding day and the celebration that followed. When I finally checked my phone around 11, there were dozens more missed calls and messages growing increasingly frantic throughout the night. Thomas ordered room service while I steeled myself to find out what family emergency was so urgent that it required 52 calls on my wedding night. I called my cousin Megan, first trusting her to give me the unfiltered truth without the manipulation my mother would inevitably employ. "Sherry, thank God you called back," she answered immediately. "Everything fell apart after you stopped responding." "What happened?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Megan's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "It was a disaster. So Amy and Ryan had this surprise wedding, right? Everything seemed fine at first. Your mom was crying, your dad looked uncomfortable, typical Williams family event." I suppressed a snort of laughter at her accurate assessment. Then, during the reception, Amy announced she was pregnant, and that is why they rushed the wedding. Everyone was congratulating them, toasting the baby, the usual stuff. But then, Ryan's face got really weird. He pulled Amy aside and they had this intense conversation that got louder and louder until everyone could hear. "What were they saying?" I asked now, genuinely curious. Ryan was saying there was no way she could be pregnant because they had not been intimate in nearly 2 months due to some big fight they had. Amy kept insisting she was pregnant, but her story kept changing about how far along she was. It was super awkward. I felt a twinge of sympathy for my sister, but it was quickly overwhelmed by the karmic justice of the situation. "It gets worse," Megan continued. "Your mom tried to smooth things over, but then Ryan's mother started asking questions about the pregnancy timeline and Amy completely lost it. She stormed out, and Ryan announced to everyone that the wedding was a mistake, and he wanted an annulment immediately." "Oh my God," I breathed, trying to process this turn of events. "Then your mom had some kind of meltdown and started ranting about how this was all your fault somehow. For not changing your wedding date, it made 0 sense. Your dad finally stepped in and took her home, but not before she tried calling you like 1,000,000 times." After thanking Megan for the update, I sat in stunned silence, trying to absorb what I had just learned. My sister had faked a pregnancy to pressure Ryan into a rushed wedding deliberately scheduled to overshadow mine, only to have her deception exposed at the reception. "What is the verdict?" Thomas asked, returning from answering the door for room service. I recounted Megan's story as we ate breakfast, still processing my own feelings about it all. "So basically, your sister's attempt to steal your thunder backfired spectacularly," Thomas summarized. "And now, your family wants you to, what? Fix it somehow." "That has always been my role," I acknowledged. Cleaning up Amy's messes, being the responsible one. Putting family peace above my own needs. "And what do you want to do now?" he asked, his expression serious. I considered the question carefully. Part of me, the part conditioned by years of family dynamics, felt the pull to respond immediately, to rush to my mother's side and help manage the fallout. But another part, the part that had been strengthened by Thomas's love and my own growing self-respect, resisted. I think I said slowly that I want to enjoy my first day as your wife without diving into their drama. I think I want to go for a walk along the lake, maybe have lunch at that little cafe you love and pretend for one more day that we are just a normal newlywed couple without family complications. Thomas's smile was all the confirmation I needed that this was the right decision. That sounds perfect. We spent the day exactly as planned, deliberately keeping our phones on silent. It was only that evening, as we packed for our honeymoon flight the next morning, that I finally called my mother back. She answered on the first ring, her voice hoarse from what sounded like hours of crying. "Sherry, finally. Where have you been? We have been trying to reach you since last night." "I was at my wedding reception, Mom. Then I was spending time with my husband. You know the events you chose to miss." She ignored my pointed comment. "Your sister is in crisis. Ryan left her. He is claiming the marriage was fraudulent and wants it annulled. He told everyone she was lying about being pregnant." "And was she?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. My mother hesitated. She may have been confused about the timing. "So she lied," I translated. "She lied about being pregnant to trap Ryan into marriage, scheduled that marriage to coincide with my wedding day, and now it is all blown up in her face. And you expect me to do what exactly?" "She needs her sister right now," my mother insisted. "Family supports each other through difficult times." The irony was so thick I could almost touch it. "Where was that family support yesterday, Mom? When I was getting married without a single blood relative present because all of you chose Amy's fake wedding over my real one. That is not fair, Sherry." "No, it is not fair. None of this has been fair. But for once the unfairness is not landing on me, and I refuse to feel guilty about that." "So you are just going to abandon your sister when she needs you most?" My mother's voice took on the guilt-inducing tone I knew so well. "I am going on my honeymoon with my husband," I replied firmly. "When we return, I will think about what kind of relationship, if any, I want to have with people who have consistently shown me I am their last priority. For now, Amy's crisis is her problem and yours." I ended the call before she could respond, feeling a strange mixture of guilt and liberation. Thomas, who had been pretending not to listen while he packed, came to stand beside me. "Proud of you," he said, simply kissing the top of my head. We left for our honeymoon the next morning, 2 weeks in Hawaii, where we snorkeled, hiked volcanoes, and began healing from the wedding drama. I checked my messages occasionally but did not respond to the increasingly desperate pleas from my family. For once, I was putting myself first, and it felt both terrifying and necessary. When we returned to Chicago tanned and refreshed, I found a different landscape awaiting me. My father had called Thomas's father, arranging for a neutral meeting at a restaurant of my choosing. To my surprise, when we arrived, only my father was present, no mother or Amy in sight. "Thank you for coming," he said, looking older and more tired than I remembered. "I owe you an apology. The way we treated you, the way we have always treated you, was wrong. I should have stood up for you long ago." His words, while appreciated, came too late to erase years of hurt. "Why now, Dad? What changed?" "Everything," he said quietly. "After Amy's wedding fell apart, your mother was convinced you would step in and fix things like you always do. When you did not, when you finally put yourself first, it forced us to look at the patterns we have created. It has not been pretty." He explained that Amy had indeed fabricated the pregnancy to pressure Ryan into marriage. When exposed, she had suffered what my father called a reality check. She was now in therapy, addressing her competitive nature and need for attention. My mother, faced with the consequences of her enabling behavior, had reluctantly agreed to family counseling. "We have a lot of work to do," my father acknowledged, "and I understand if you need time and space. I just wanted you to know that your standing firm has forced changes that were long overdue." 6 months passed. Thomas and I settled into married life, finding joy in the simple routines of sharing a home and building our future. I maintained minimal contact with my family, agreeing to occasional coffee with my father, who seemed genuinely committed to change. My mother's progress was slower, her apologies still tinged with justifications, but there was effort I had never seen before. Amy and I had one carefully managed meeting facilitated by her therapist. She offered what seemed like a sincere apology, acknowledging the pattern of competition and jealousy that had dominated our relationship. Whether we would ever have a true sisterly bond remained to be seen, but the toxic dynamic had been named and addressed. The greatest surprise came when I discovered I was pregnant just 7 months after our wedding. Sharing the news with Thomas was one of the happiest moments of my life, his joy and excitement mirroring my own. When it came time to tell my family, I did so with clear boundaries in place. "I am creating my own family now," I told them during a carefully orchestrated dinner. "A family based on mutual respect, support, and love. If you want to be part of this child's life, those are the values you will need to demonstrate." To their credit, they listened. My mother, perhaps motivated by the prospect of a grandchild, made more sincere efforts toward change. My father stepped up, becoming more assertive in family dynamics. Amy kept her distance, but sent thoughtful notes and appropriate gifts, respecting the boundaries I had established. As my pregnancy progressed, I found myself reflecting on the wedding day that had seemed so devastating at the time. The empty chairs, the absent family, the copied dress, all of it had felt like the ultimate betrayal. Yet, in retrospect, it had been the catalyst for necessary change. By refusing to play my assigned role in the family drama, I had forced a reckoning that might never have happened otherwise. 1 year after our wedding, Thomas and I celebrated our anniversary by hosting a small dinner party for the people who had stood by us through everything. Jacqueline was there along with Thomas's family and a few close friends. My father attended alone, my mother and Amy, not yet earning the right to such intimate gatherings. As we toasted to our first year of marriage and the baby that would arrive in just 2 months, I felt a profound sense of peace. The family I had desperately sought approval from for 34 years no longer held power over my happiness. Instead, I was surrounded by people who valued me exactly as I was, who showed up when it mattered, who loved without conditions or competition. "To boundaries," Thomas whispered in my ear as our guests mingled around us, "and to the beautiful life they have helped us create." I smiled, resting my hands on my growing belly. "And to second chances for those who earn them." Sometimes I realized the most painful betrayals lead to the most necessary growth. My wedding day had not been what I imagined, but the marriage and life it began were beyond anything I could have hoped for. In losing the family I was born into, I had gained the freedom to create the family I deserved. If you are struggling with family dynamics that drain rather than sustain, you remember that you have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to prioritize your own well-being. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and others is to break the patterns that keep everyone stuck. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, the family you choose can be even more powerful than the family you were given.